Hi, my name is Marco Cortina, Investigative Counsel with the LSC OIG. Today, I'll be presenting slides covering the topics of fraud related to grantee revenue streams and credit card fraud. We're going to go into some real-world case studies to help illustrate these areas. So, with respect to grantee revenue streams, we've had past cases involving the theft of grantee court-ordered attorney fees, client payments of fees intended for the client trust account, and donations. So obviously these don't comprise all grantee revenue streams, so we'll touch on other areas a bit later. Our first case example is Kevin's attorney's fees. Kevin was a managing attorney at a small grantee branch office. Prior to working for the grantee, Kevin worked as an attorney in private practice. Part of his private practice involved court-appointed cases at local county courts, for which he received a fee from the counties. When Kevin was hired by the grantee, he was permitted to work court-appointed cases on behalf of the grantee in counties near his branch office. These cases included child abuse and neglect cases. Within 6 months of being hired, Kevin began taking the attorney fees for the cases he worked on behalf of the grantee for himself. He did not remit the fees to the grantee as required by LSC regulations and grantee policy. In other words, he stole the attorney fees. Kevin had the fees made out to KSL Corporation, an entity he owned and controlled. Over a 3-year period, Kevin received 16 payments from 2 different counties, totaling just under $25,000. Each payment was for a case Kevin worked on behalf of the grantee. So going back to the fraud triangle, Kevin's financial pressure was gambling debt. He had a gambling issue, unfortunately. Kevin saw an opportunity to steal because he realized that no one at the grantee was ensuring that the attorney fees made it back to the program. And the third leg of the triangle, rationalization, I believe Kevin convinced himself he wasn't stealing. He told us that he took the fees. He didn't want to use the word steal. He likely felt that he was entitled to the fees. So what happened to Kevin? He was immediately fired after the theft was discovered. He was disbarred from the practice of law. We worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office to get Kevin indicted in federal court. He pled guilty to 1 count of theft from a federal program, a felony. He was ordered to pay full restitution and sentenced to 12 months in federal prison. Our second case example is called Gabby's Greed. Gabby worked an intake desk for a grantee. Gabby would have clients give her a blank money order or cash for a filing fee related to their cases before U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Typically, these were VAWA cases where Gabby was assisting clients submit employment authorization applications. Gabby would request that the grantee pay the filing fee in her cases, and subsequently, she would apply for a fee waiver from USCIS. Gabby would then pocket or steal the application fee. The total theft in this case was over $50,000. So going back to the fraud triangle, in Gabby's case, sometimes, and this is rare, but sometimes there really isn't much of a financial pressure except for greed. In Gabby's case, when we asked her why she stole the fees, she said it was just too tempting not to take. And similar to Kevin's case, Gabby had the opportunity to steal because the internal controls of the grantee were not catching the theft. So what happened to Gabby? Gabby lost her job immediately. She was ordered to pay full restitution. She was sentenced to 3 months in prison and 8 months of home supervision. Prevention. With respect to client trust accounts, the OIG issued a fraud alert on this topic, which contains an exhaustive list of best practices. It's on our website. If you're concerned about client fees being stolen, I urge you to check it out. Posting signage in the area where clients provide payments to your program is one of the best practices that also goes for donations. The signage should state that all payments should be made payable to the grantee and not to staff members or case handlers. Signage could also state that everyone who provides payment to a grantee is entitled to a receipt. Using pre-numbered receipts and receipt books is also a best practice, and discouraging cash payments as well. With respect to attorney fees, managing attorneys should be aware of all fee-eligible cases they supervise, and they should ensure that fee-eligible cases are not closed until the program receives the fee associated with that case. Accounting departments should also be made aware of cases where an attorney fee is expected, and the fee should be treated as a receivable so accounting staff can follow up if a fee isn't received. Now, the cases we touched on today were examples of fraudsters employed at grantees. There are also plenty of individuals outside your organization looking for ways to steal money. Most grantees regularly receive substantial grant payments. Please ensure that all your online accounts, that include savings, checking, operational accounts, investments accounts, are secured. You should restrict access to those who need access to your accounts. You should regularly change passwords, and please make use of two-factor authentication if available. Moving on to credit card fraud. Nearly all grantees use credit cards for purchasing, and most grantees now utilize multiple program cards. Unfortunately, credit cards are vulnerable to theft and misuse. Our credit card fraud case study is called Chris's Cards. Chris was a director of IT at a grantee. He had a grantee credit card issued to him in order to make IT-related purchases. He used the credit card for that purpose, but unfortunately, he also used the credit card to make over 30 personal purchases, non-business related personal purchases. The vast majority of Chris's personal purchases were for sports trading cards. For several of the purchases, Chris fabricated fraudulent invoices to make it appear that the trading card purchases were for legitimate IT expenses, and then submitted those invoices to the grantee accounting department. So, going back to the fraud triangle, financial pressure. Chris had debt. Chris also was a veteran, and he told us that he had difficulty transitioning back to civilian life. As far as opportunity, Chris's credit card statements were not being reviewed regularly by the accounting department. Part of that was an issue with the bank, where the grantee wasn't receiving credit card statements for a time. Also, the fraudulent invoices were reviewed by the accounting department, but were not initially flagged as suspicious. So what happened to Chris? We worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and Chris got federally indicted. He pled guilty to one count of theft of public money. He was ordered to pay full restitution and sentenced to 24 months of probation. Credit card fraud prevention. We recommend prior approval of all credit card expenditures. We understand that at some programs, the volume of credit card purchases makes it difficult for each credit card transaction to be pre-approved, but we still recommend this as a best practice. If every credit card transaction cannot receive prior approval, we recommend that you at a minimum establish policies outlining prior approval thresholds. For example, all credit card charges over $50 must receive prior approval from a manager, executive director, or supervisor. All executive director purchases should be reviewed by the board. Some programs have established policies where the board pre-approves purchases. Other boards review ED purchases quarterly or after a comparable period of time. Of course, every transaction needs to have an itemized receipt. For IT purchases, we recommend that the purchase approver have some background or knowledge of IT. We recommend that you establish clear credit card usage policies, including a credit card usage acknowledgement form to be signed by all credit card users. The form should make it clear that using a program credit card is a privilege, and misuse of a credit card can result in suspension of credit card privileges, termination of credit card privileges, and termination from employment in the worst cases.